6 years Bears, 5 years Dolphins, 39 years coaching football. So listen, you can give Caleb a little bit of a pass for last year. They had 3 head coaches by the end of it. But Dave, the critics of Caleb Williams said he plays too much hero ball. He could struggle with accuracy. He could be a little bit moody. So when I see with Ben Johnson all of these things coming out at camp, he's not getting plays in, the footwork. He's again, little hero ball, holding on to the ball. It's something. I don't want to hear that it's nothing. Isn't it something?
Yes, it is. And I'll tell you this, in training camp, and, I lived this. We would go through training camp, and let's say we were struggling running the football. We would say, well, it's just preseason. It's just a training camp. Those things usually do show up once you start playing for real, but it's early. And I would just say this, Caleb, keep in mind, last year at training camp, he was a guy that had a tough time getting a snap because he was never up under center. I mean, this is how primitive the whole pro passing game, under center, play action pass was to this kid. So, I think it's a starting point there. And then Ben does everything by timing. By that, I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, the ball's coming out. Now you got to get it obviously to the right person, or it might be 5 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And everything is tied together from the line protection to the receiver routes and the quarterback. So this is there is a learning process here. And I would probably say the biggest difference between here and OTAs is now there's a pass rush. And they're not hitting the quarterback, but the Bears now are getting a lot of pressure and probably putting their hands up. And that's a little bit different from him because he's throwing from a different spot. You go back to his college days, Colin, at USC. This guy, he saw more 3-man rush and more of a prevent defense than any quarterback in college football because they knew that he wouldn't sit in the pocket. He was going to scramble and he was going to try to throw it deep. So this is now all of a sudden it's play fake and it's coming out 1, 2, 3. This is completely foreign to him. I think he'll be fine. I'm going up for a couple of days next week, so I'll get a firsthand look and I'm going to sit down with Ben. We'll have a couple of good conversations.
I want to ask you about Mike McDaniel. So I do think in this day and age, offensive coaches have an advantage because all the rules lean offense. So it does help to be an offensive coach. Now, that doesn't mean Sean McDermott can't be great, but even Belichick felt a little out of touch his last 4 or 5 years in New England. The whole darn league now is about quarterbacks and offensive coaches. And Mike McDaniel goes to Miami, and everybody loved him. He was quirky. He was unique. And my takeaway now, 2-3 years later, is a lot of sizzle, not a lot of steak. They don't run the ball. It's a lot of clever. It's a lot of multiple sets in motion. I would move off Tyreek Hill. I would get picks. I don't think it's working in Miami. I don't think it is. You've been there. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I 2 thoughts. Number one, the Tyreek Hill situation. I don't know. How do you have an outside shot to go to the playoffs as a wild card, which they did last year? And some things had to fall right. But that last game, if they win and 2 or 3 things happen, and your best player, Tyreek Hill, does not go in the game, and they asked you that at a press conference, and you don't have an answer, I'm still, taken back a little bit by that response. And the other thing that bothers me, and you hit it right on the head, Chris Greer was on my staff when I was there. He was one of my scouts. Great. I thought he was very good. I don't know Mike as a head coach, but the players that they signed as free agents, the players that they drafted, the first comment out of everybody's mouth this year at Miami was, he's a tough guy. Oh, we drafted the big tackle Grant out of Michigan. But you know why? He is a tough guy. It's weak. It's I hate to say this, but it's probably too late. It's like halfway through the season, you decide that you want to run the football. It's too late. That's training camp. And now all of a sudden they want to become a tough football team. I just don't, it's going to be very difficult to turn that mindset.
Yeah, it's funny about guys like Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur, and Sean McVay. Even though they're offensive coaches, they love the run game. They love power. Yep. Shanahan and McVay and LaFleur love power football. And so I think sometimes, McDaniel, again, I understood the media falling for it, but it was a lot of motion and a lot of stuff didn't matter. But the difference between Shanahan and McDaniel, because it's a lot of the same offenses, Shanahan runs the ball. He loves to run the ball.
And we all know the quarterback is the key to all this stuff at the end of the day. Tua's down there saying that he hasn't patched it up yet. He has a problem with Tyreek Hill, that they haven't really bonded since the end of the season when Tyreek Hill said he didn't want to have anything to do with the Dolphins. He didn't like their culture. Well, I tell you, what happened to mini camps, Colin? What happened to OTAs? These guys had 6 months to work through that problem, that issue, whatever it is. To what extent, I don't know. But when you got your starting quarterback coming out during training camp saying, I got a problem with him, we're not on the same page, that concerns the heck out of me.
When I watch those old Dallas Cowboy films, NFL films, and you were part of that great team with Jimmy Johnson, and I hear Troy Aikman, Jimmy had left, Barry was there, and Troy is lighting guys up, and he's questioning maturity on his teammates. He's questioning maturity. And I think that's why I like my quarterback sometimes to, be a grown-up here. And Shedeur Sanders gets 2 tickets. And finally, Andrew Barry came out and said, that's just not smart. What do? You don't have a dominant quarterback. You drafted 2 kids. You got Kenny Pickett. What do you do with tickets? How do you address it? As a coach, it would be so hard for me to watch Shedeur Sanders and not make judgments on him based on driving 90 miles an hour as a 5th-round rookie. I would have a hard time looking at him the same way. What do you make of what he did, and how much do you think that will hurt his Cleveland experience?
I think it's going to affect him. I'll tell you why. He's a quarterback. If you're a defensive lineman, it's still wrong. It still would concern you. But I'll be honest with you. I've had defensive linemen that have kind of fallen into the same mentality. Always something, going on with the guy. No one ever talked about it. But your quarterback is the face of the program, and everything is going to be magnified that this kid does. And the second thing that really bothers me is, and I'm sure Deion's told him this, son, there's a reason that you fell from the 1st round down to the 4th or 5th round. There's a reason for that. Okay? We cannot give these people any reason to think anything negative about you except football performance. If the football performance isn't good enough, hey, that's it. But don't give them any other reason. And here we go. We got a reason to just put a little doubt in your minds, not just for Cleveland. Whether he's with Cleveland or anybody else, there's a lot of GMs that passed on this kid. A lot of GMs that had an opportunity to draft him. Why? I don't know all the details, but this is just not good overall. I don't think it's just another check to the box.
So, I was saying this week, and it sounds weird. I said, the most important thing when you take a job is your quarterback. That's why Harbaugh took the Chargers, Justin Herbert. But the second most important thing is ownership. And I said, I think I would take the Niners job, which has good ownership which has great ownership and a good quarterback, Brock Purdy, over going to Cincinnati where Burrow's great, but I don't trust the scouting department. I don't trust the ownership. And I said, I worry about Joe Burrow becoming Matt Stafford, where we all know he's great, but it's a circus of coaches. They don't draft well enough. The organization at the top isn't good enough. So I saw a story this week about Joe Burrow. He was upset about more holdouts. How do you think the Burrow thing, how do you think it plays out? Because Dave, he's the best quarterback last year. There's an argument he was the league's best quarterback. He was the best quarterback in the league and did not make the playoffs. Are you worried that he becomes Stafford in Detroit?
Yes, absolutely. I think you have to be, because I don't know, even with Hendrickson and their number 1 draft picks hold out too, right? The pass rusher from Texas A&M. But I would say this, you just reminded me of a little story. I worked for the Dolphins with Coach Shula for 6 weeks before Jimmy got the Dallas job. And Coach Shula told me, Cowherd, I'm going to dispute your priorities here. He said, you know the difference, Dave, between this NFL job and the in college? And I said, no, Coach. And he said, well, understand who the three most important people are in the NFL. Number one, your owner. Number two, your owner. And number three, your owner. So that's just that, I don't know. If Coach Shula knew anything, then okay. But that was his philosophy. But I would say to this, okay, I don't know. It's a distraction. The first thought that comes to my mind is it's a distraction. And you do not, last year it was receivers, getting them signed. And man, the quickest way to be defeated, you've heard me say this when we did shows together, is to be distracted. And right now this football team is distracted. And, Mike Brown said, yeah, we'll get him signed. I mean, he's 30 years old. You know what the market is, what Watt got and what Myles Garrett, you know what pay this guy, because you know the reason. When you have a great offense, like you have with Burrow and that group of receivers, a great offense, it's going to score points. At the end of the game, we always talk about you have to have defensive closers. And who are your closers? It's your pass rushers, your two pass rushers, and your two corners. They're the guys. If you don't have them, you have a tough time stopping people when they're throwing it, and you do have the lead. That was the Dolphins' problem for years with Dan Marino. He'd get a lead, couldn't get off the field on defense, and they get on and score. I mean, he's 30 years old. So you get 3 good years on him. Sign him to a 3-year contract. This is my opinion. Sign him to a 3-year contract. And let Burrow, in 3 years, I mean, I don't know. It just bothers me that you would let this distraction. I don't know what's going on with their number one pick, the rookie, the defensive end, language or something. I read somebody said, I don't know about these rookie contracts anymore, what he's talking about with language. But do you need these two guys in there? You need them in there now.
Yeah, and it should be noted that when Hendrickson did not play, they're like 32nd with a pass rush. So he is their pass rush. Finally, Dave Wannstedt joining us, one of my favorite people. I've said this with Nick Saban. He's not going back to college, Dave, because with the NIL, you have to pay so much money for players, $15 million. You have to go to your boosters to get $15 million bucks. You're not going to buy out a coach for $60 million, pay Nick Saban $70 million, raise 15. There's too much money now. You're not going to fire your coach. Nick's not going to coach college. He already did great there. But I do think, because of the way Miami ended, he would take a call if Arch Manning went to the Saints or Arch Manning went to Cleveland. I think he would take the phone call. Do you?
He would take the phone call just because, everybody wants to be wanted. Everybody wants to, and I can speak from Jimmy. I mean, I'm not get into the teams, but even when Jimmy was into Fox several years, okay, when he was done with it all, that he called me one time in particular and was offered so much money to run the whole thing, coach, GM, everything with the team. And he took the call, but obviously he didn't have any interest in doing it. So I think that's where Nick's at right now, where Belichick's enjoying this. I saw Bill's press conference, and he's talking about going out and meeting with alumni, how much he enjoyed going to other sports, men's and women's, and meeting the student athletes. It's new to Bill, so he's enjoying it right now. Nick's kind of gone. He's traveled that road. I don't see Nick getting back into it.
By the way, how do you think Belichick does?
I think he's going to do good. The biggest, and I did it with Pitt. When I went back to Pitt, and I had some really good players, obviously, Revis and that company. What happens, though, is you don't – the restrictions in college with classes and the time, you don't have – and Bill is such a perfectionist and, do it over, meet more, watch more tape. The time restrictions in college are the number one thing that gets you when you separate the NFL from college football, in my opinion. And players aren't going to have it down as pat, and they're going to make mistakes. And whether it be turning the ball over or breaking coverages, things like that happen with college kids, which all of a sudden you might be doing a fabulous job coaching and you may have a lot of talent, but they make a mistake because you can't spend the time with them in college that you can in the NFL. That's the hurdle he's going to have to get over.
Yeah, that's always been my point about, like, I said this. Bill Walsh coached in college, but the college limitations limited how brilliant Bill Walsh could be.
Yep.
But when you gave him 50 hours a week, or Belichick all that extra time, Bill's the best defensive coach ever. Bill Walsh, the best offensive coach ever. If you told Andy Reid he only got 17 hours a week, Andy Reid he'd be pulling his hair out. Dave Wannstedt, as always, Coach, great seeing you.
All right, see you in Chicago.